Welcome to Inside Politics. I'm Chris Varcoe of the Calgary Herald, joined by David Terrace from Mount Royal University and Don Braid of the Calgary Herald. Gentlemen, the election is a Tuesday night. Don, what have we learned from this election campaign?
Alberta is unstable. Albertans are uncertain. They're looking for something new. There's a uneasiness about doing that, but really we've never seen anything like this election campaign since the PCs were elected in 1971. There has never been a three-way fight that seems real, and we've never gone into a final weekend where the PCs actually seem to be behind, despite last time where actually polls were showing that they were ahead in 2012. We have got one unstable situation here that could be reflected in the legislature afterwards.
David, you're a university professor. I want to ask you to grade the leaders, but just tell me their performance. How did you think that the big four leaders did during this campaign?
Well, I think the table was set to some degree right before the election. With, first of all, the call of the election, that people were really upset by the call. They saw it as self-serving, a budget that created widespread anger. So, the deal with the Wild Rose, which exploded in the Premier's face. So all that, set the stage. And his numbers were nosediving to the point where I think he was at the lowest in popularity in, generations of any Conservative leader. And then he goes into an election. Right. And what happened was, there wasn't a day when he wasn't under attack. And a lot of it was from friends, right? I mean, former cabinet ministers, mayors, school boards. Every day he woke up to a fire that he had to put out. And I think he was under attack all the time, never really got his message out because, how can you score goals when you're playing defense all the time?
What about Brian Jean and Rachel Notley?
Well, Rachel Notley was brilliant in this campaign. She was pitch perfect. She chose to emphasize policies that were already popular. So, increased corporate taxes or, school lunches and, let's get the 2,000 long-term beds. So, she was very, very good. But it was her charisma, her authority. I think she was incredible during the debate. She won most of the one-on-ones. And there was a sense of gravitas. She passed the threshold and people could imagine her as premier.
And what about the Wild Roses, Brian Jean?
Well, it was one of the most peculiar debate performances, at least. It was kind of like a robo-candidate that whatever questions would be asked, he would have the same answers again and again and again. And I think the province really didn't get to see Brian Jean. He remains a mystery to most Albertans.
Don, let's ask you about David Swan, because the Liberal leader hasn't received a lot of attention. But how did you rate
David has been eccentric, original, in there fighting. Like the Liberal Party had an event the other day where they had some candidates and there was virtually nobody in the campaign office, just them and the media.
Right.
His policies are, progressive policies that are, for reasonably higher taxes for corporations and all the rest of it. And David's an older guy, and there's no problem with that. It happens to people. But I think he kind of reflects the way people are feeling about the Liberals, and we'll see if they, whether they get 5% or 10% could matter a lot. In some of the ridings where the NDP might competing, we'll see.
What's your election turning point, if there is one singular turning point?
Oh, it's the debate. Rachel Notley I don't think Jim Prentice expected her to be such a tigress in debate. Some people were annoyed by her interruptions and everything, but I think it was all very carefully scripted. Are those guys going to interrupt a woman who's talking? No, they're not. It was brilliantly done. She's very quick on her feet. I did not know that about her. I've seen her in the legislature for years. She's always quick in the legislature, but it's a very formal environment. It's, where you're not constantly going at each other.
Right.
And she was revelatory for a lot of people.
We often talk when we head into campaigns, David, about what the ballot box question is for voters. We've now gone through virtually the entire campaign. What do you think the question is going through voters' minds when they go to mark an X on the ballot?
Well, the different parties are asking different questions. The Tories are saying it's us or the New Democrats. The New Democrats are extreme. They're scary. They don't believe in pipelines. There's going to be a royalty review. Things will be unstable here. And the New Democrats are saying, it's been 43 years. It's time for a change. It's a new Alberta. So they're asking different questions as we head into these last few days.
But do you think the voters themselves have solidified on what that question is?
I think we're still in flux. Don was right. I mean, I think there'll be a lot of people that don't vote, a lot of people who vote nervously, a lot of people who, will make last-minute decisions, and a lot of people who will, are saying, okay, let me look, I have to decide now, and haven't decided yet.
So, election night, Don, what are the keys that you're going to be watching for indicators of what might happen?
The thing I always look for every election night is who wins the first 5 seats. Because in Alberta, every time I've watched that number, it's turned out to be the majority.
It's always the same party,
Don.
Don.
That's right. It's always been the same party. So I'll be watching for that. The turnout is going to be fascinating to see. If it's low, probably means people aren't that upset. The PCs will drift back in. Their get out the vote, DOTV as they call it, or GoTV as they call it, is hugely important in this, and could mean, if you look at the polls, maybe you can take every PC number and tack 5% onto it for their GOTV. So I think it's, whether it's a minority or a slight PC majority or a slight NDP, whatever, I think it's a total toss-up at this point.
David, what about yourself? I know that people look at either certain regional ridings or certain bellwether ridings, so to speak. What are you going to be looking for in terms of election night?
Well, I'm going to look for whether or not there are 3 different Albertas voting differently. So I expect the New Democrats to sweep Edmonton. I expect the Wild Rose to do very well in rural Alberta, perhaps even winning rural Alberta. And then it comes down to Fortress Calgary. That's always been the Tory backyard, the Tory stronghold. If we see in the first 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes that Fortress Calgary is being invaded, that the ramparts aren't holding, then it's going to be a long night for the Tories.
Well, gentlemen, thanks so much for your time.
My pleasure.